Now, as world leaders start to arrive in San Francisco to attend the APEC Summit, hundreds of protesters clashed in California City before the arrival of US President Joe Biden and Chinese President Xi Jinping. Hundreds of onlookers gathered on the Chinese and American leaders' motorcade route, some holding signs that read End CCP. CCP stands for the Chinese Communist Party. Some cited human rights abuses and the demolition of their properties in China, while others held Taiwanese and Tibetan flags, all polarizing issues. Dozens of pro-China and a few anti-China demonstrators also gathered near the Moscone Center, the venue where many APEC meetings are being held and are scheduled to be held. Police lined up vehicles, limiting the view of demonstrators from passing dignitaries' motorcades. Some protesters also converged on the plaza in front of San Francisco's Ferry Building, the gateway to the city, carrying banners and posters opposing the forum, calling for economic and environmental change, and waving Palestinian flags as they call for a ceasefire in the Israel-Hamas war.
My message is to Joe Biden to call for a ceasefire now and to stop this genocide now. This is inhumane, the injustice, it's insane, the genocide, it needs to stop. We're here to, try to make a change, put in our efforts, speak up, just do what we can, honestly, to help our people back home in Gaza.
We need to really work on our solution to the climate emergency, the climate crisis. We are so far getting an F. I'm here to grade our response so far, and I hope we can work it up to a D, C, B, and an A, but so far we are failing to address this emergency.
Now, the protests are expected throughout this week's APEC Leaders Conference, which could draw more than 20,000 attendees, including hundreds of international journalists. Although it is unlikely that world leaders will even have a glimpse of the protests, given the strict security zones accessible only to attendees at the Moscone Center, Conference Hall, and other summit sites.
Presidentes de 21 países líderes están aquí precisamente en San Francisco. Van a estar hasta el día 19 y están haciendo un gasto enorme por recibirlos y tratarlos como reyes. Están diciendo que ya se pidieron más de 20 millones de dólares para recibirlos y tratarlos de lo mejor. Mientras que nuestra comunidad está hecha un caos. Vemos aquí a la gente, hay mucho indigente, no tienen casa, otros no tienen trabajo.
Now, we were earlier joined by our Voice of America correspondent, Jessica Stone, with the latest details from the APEC Summit. She joined us from San Francisco, where the summit is being held. Take a look.
Well, I can tell you that I feel personally affected by that question, because where I'm standing right now, I'm told by the law enforcement officers around this hotel, this is where those thousands of protesters will likely stage on Wednesday morning, ahead of a day that's expected to include as many as 10,000 protesters. And they're not protesting all for the same reason. They tend to integrate amongst themselves and go up Market Street, which is just to my left, and goes past many of the important buildings here in San Francisco. They are protesting the war. They are protesting APEC itself. They are protesting the idea of free trade that is still in many parts of the United States, as we've seen with some of the electoral outcomes, a controversial idea, particularly if it means that U.S. jobs move overseas. And so we are likely to see anti-China protests. We've already seen those welcoming President Xi Jinping line the streets, even though they didn't have a chance of catching a glimpse. So, yes, there's a real active and encouraged environment of open First Amendment free speech and civic duty here. But I do have concerns about how many people will be here when I talk to you on Wednesday morning, my time, because I could be surrounded by quite a few folks, and I'm not sure how peaceful they will be.